just gonna be our Collinsworth, I guess. Get it
Oh yeah,
going.
does somebody want to message her though to let her know that we are going to do the main podcast now?
She'll get on when she's ready.
Just yell at her. We're starting the podcast.
Becca, we're starting the podcast.
Perfect intro material.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 9 of season 3 for the Track Packers podcast. We're coming off the second full weekend in our region, and we have a lot of stuff potentially to talk about. Myself, Mason, here with Mason Aaron Racing Videos. We have Jessup Pelkey of Dakota Dirt and Dakota Speedway TV, John Breckel, announcer at Dakota Speedway and Jamestown Speedway, and Miss Becca Pelkey, Dakota Speedway's fire putter outer, announcer, whatever you may define her as. We're all here for another fun-filled episode. Be sure, if you're watching or listening, be sure to give us a follow and like on our Facebook page, the Track Packers Podcast. We greatly appreciate the support. Spotify, Google, and Apple is where you can listen to us in the podcasting platform. Be sure to give us a glowing review because we love to know who's out there enjoying our content. And so be sure to stay up on all of that. We have to thank our presenting sponsor, Hitch Harness, headlined by Tyler Hall out of Fertile, Minnesota, who got his season started on a very strong note this past weekend. So we want to thank him for supporting us over the last season. Head over to hitchharness.com and check out the main product, the Hitch Harness. You can customize it to fit your needs if you need multiple for the back of your truck. Also, they have stuff for the racers, including chassis dollies, pole bar brackets, and more. So be sure to go over to hitchharness.com, check out all this stuff, tell them the Track Packers podcast sent you, and thank you once again, Tyler, for supporting us. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a lineup change. For the first time in a little bit, we have an all-J front row with Jessup on pole, followed by Mr. John Breckel, myself, Mason, and Becca Pelkey bringing up the rear of the field. Mr. Jessup Pelkey, how are you doing this week, sir?
I'm doing good. We're about to get Western out here and go elbows up on this podcast.
Yes, this could be a fun podcast now that we have racing taking place in our home areas for the start of the season. John, how are you doing, sir?
I'm also doing quite well. I'm no longer dying, so I'm doing pretty good from that perspective.
John had his leg amputated tonight as
Yes,
he had a
I
boo-boo.
basically I injured myself. I had an owie on Saturday night. Yes, being stupid and almost falling when I tried to get up from the floor and caused my whole toenail to come off pretty much on my foot. So yeah, don't worry. I sent pictures to Becca just to get that reaction. So, and I even sent the one that it's really black and blue right now. I sent that one to her too, so she could even see it even more. But no, besides that, it's been an awesome week. We got racing in. I got to watch a couple tracks. Got to watch some very nice racing action for the Xfinity race on Saturday, and I'm looking forward now to hit the ground running with racing season.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. I know for me, this is kind of a hectic stretch. I just came off a 3-race weekend once again, and with the full marathon that I've been training for, it's a very hectic couple of weeks. So I was pretty tired even before I hit the racetrack on Sunday. So I'm kind of looking forward to the end of this month when the marathon's kind of behind me, and now it's just racing season to kind of take care of. But definitely been enjoying getting to the tracks for another straight weekend. That leaves Miss Becca. How are you doing this weekend? Or this week, I should say.
I'm good. I'm working on some projects right now. Ripped out the closet in our the bedroom next to our master bedroom, and I am currently installing an IKEA closet system. So I took a break from that to hop on here before I start and park because it is way past my bedtime and I still need to shower. So another start and park for me this week. Yeah, that's what I'm up to.
We are just embodying the 2004 NASCAR season at this point.
We really are. Becca's become the 80 machine.
I'm just here to get paid.
So are you saying Becca's getting the black flag for not getting up to speed?
No, I take the green flag. I just make about
Yeah.
10 laps. I take my paycheck
Yeah,
and go.
she makes minimum speed for sure. She just
Oh,
doesn't
she's one of
she doesn't have
those.
she doesn't have the equipment to make it the whole way to the end of the race.
You watched that Start and Park series on YouTube, Jessup. You should
That's
know all
called the field fillers. That makes Becca a field filler.
Becca has become our
But
field
they
filler.
were Jessup. They were Start and Parkers.
No,
Hey,
that
just
is a
think-
field filler, Becca.
If this were 2024, you'd have a car that is just durable, that it can last through like 3 world wars and be just fine.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
It's
I don't
not a
know.
bad thing. We love
it's such
having
a
every car
beautiful
running
look.
at the end of each race.
I mean,
Yes.
such a beautiful look for that car too.
My back hurts just like sitting on the floor after 5 minutes. Like I don't know if 2024 were like a car. I don't know my body.
Hey, did you guys hear what they're gonna implement for the 2026 season for when Amazon renews to get them to renew? They are gonna have a jump at the start finish line.
That would be a perfect kickoff to the Daytona 500. Everybody jumps and wrecks their cars, and then it's survival of the fittest after that.
Ryan Blaney might have someone other than all the other people to blame.
This is true. The jump would be his problem.
That jump took me out. It was intentional. I hate these people.
Glad everyone is doing great after a fun-filled weekend of racing. We will get right into it with the waving of the green flag and get into episode 9 with who or what are we repping. Jessup, since you're on the poll, you get to go first.
All right, so this is kind of a offshoot racing shirt. I think we've had this on here before, but this is my Daytona 500 shirt that we got from Craftsman. Free shirt, kind of a cool little shirt. Nothing too fancy about it, but that's my racing shirt for tonight. Craftsman's always been a big part of racing, and kind of a fun weekend because 3 of the 4 of us were at that race, and 3 of the 4 got that shirt.
I actually used that same shirt for the half marathon I did at Daytona Beach. And
Nice.
it was
Good job, Mason.
Yeah, it was drenched by the time I hit mile 3.
Did you throw it away at the end?
No, I still have it.
Probably with the humidity, I can about imagine.
It was rough. I was
That-
not ready for
That
the
time in the morning
humidity.
too. Yeah, especially that time in the morning too, because it's even thicker.
Yeah. It was rough, but it was a good time. Cool shirt, Jessup. John, who or what are you repping?
Okay, so I'm also repping a shirt that has been repped before as part of the podcast. However, I had to rep it again. So the driver's shirt that I'm repping is the 471 of Austin Weist. And the reason why I'm repping Austin's shirt is because, first of all, it's got his car in the background on the back of it. Very nice paint scheme from a couple years ago. However, Austin ended up opening the season up on Friday at the Dacotah Speedway in Mandan. He was 3rd in the heat and 3rd in the feature. He had threes as a theme for the night. However, Saturday comes around and the Weiss family decided, you know what, we should go racing some more. So they decided to drive out to Billings to Big Sky Speedway and ran out there on Saturday night, 6-hour plus drive from Bismarck out to there. Austin ended up winning his heat from the back and ended up taking the feature win as well out there to end his weekend on a positive note for the first weekend of racing of the year. So my repping of the shirt is for Austin this week, as they put on a lot of miles for the first weekend of racing for them, but they came away with 2 top 5s and a win to go with it as well, which is a super way to start your season.
Yeah, that was a fun surprise to see him on the entry list over at Big Sky. And yeah, it was Big Sky, correct? Yeah.
It was Big Sky, yep. And I was very happy to see that his drawing skills have not improved from Mandan. draws bad in Mandan all the time, and he drew bad over there too.
Well, he didn't have Becca to blame at least this time.
This is true. This is very true.
But yeah, that's a great weekend for him. Awesome shirt once again. I'll go next. I'm repping Issac Sondrol, one of our sponsors for the hat. This is an old hat from like 2016 or 2017, and you can see it's got a lot of the dirt track worn here, so it's definitely seen its fair share of use. For the koozie, I'm repping the Landing Bar and Bottle Shop, which sponsored this year. I think it was mid 2010s. Kelly Henderson and Michael Venice. Michael Venice no longer races. Kelly Henderson kind of dabbles every once in a while, but they were sponsored by the Landing Bar and Bottle Shop back in the day. And for the shirt, I'm also repping a winner from this past weekend. This is the shirt of Seth Klostrek, number 30 Wissota Street Stock. This is a shirt from a few years back, and he has a really cool Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles scheme this year, and he won the season opener at River City Speedway this past Friday, which is his second year in a row doing that. So definitely knows how to go right out of the gate and get a feature win up in Grand Forks. And so hopefully that car stays in great shape throughout the year, because it's a very, very cool looking car, and I'm sure it's a fan favorite already this year. So that is who or what I am repping. That leaves Miss Becca. Who or what are you repping?
I am wearing the shirt I wore to the gym. I didn't feel like changing because you guys were chatting too long. So tonight I am wearing my Casey Kane 5K shirt that I picked up in Charlotte back in 2016, maybe. But yeah, Casey Kane was supposed to run this 5K
Is it on
with
the
us.
shirt?
But Hurricane Matthew came through the east side of the United States that year. And so because of all the rain going into the NASCAR weekend, they had to move the racing schedule around. So Casey Kane, who was supposed to race with us in this 5K, had to actually race his race car instead. So would have been cool because they actually gave additional money out for anyone that could run faster and beat him in the 5K, which that wasn't going to be me that day, but I was definitely going to try. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool 5K down through the streets of downtown Charlotte. So a great way to check out a new city that I'd never been to and see the sights and take in some NASCAR for the weekend.
The more I like get back into NASCAR and the more I see Charlotte, I'm like, gosh, I need to visit Charlotte one of these years.
Definitely would recommend and I would make it like a 10-day trip down to Charlotte, just because there is so much to see and do down there in regards to all the different racing shops you can check out. There's a tons of racetracks, whether it's dirt track, asphalt, or the NASCAR races themselves. Plus, Charlotte's just a fun city just to hang out downtown, because they have the NASCAR Hall of Fame, they have the Panther Stadium a few blocks away, and just fun things to do just all week long. We were never bored the 10 days that we were down there.
Yeah, awesome, cool shirt. Even though you've repped it before, she really is the 80 machine, John. Just reusing cars from each single week. Just could be the short track car, could be the intermediate super speedway. Nah, we'll just bring it out on the track for 15 laps and park it.
It works.
Yep.
Before you go, Becca, did you have any takeaways from the season opener at your home track?
So Dakota Speedway opened up their first race back on Friday, May 10th. Decent car count, considering it was one of the very first nice weekends in May. So a lot of drivers who also farm unfortunately couldn't be at the races. So we did see a dip in our car counts. I really thought we'd have higher car counts, but didn't really take into a consideration that some of our farmers would actually be farming. So great car counts regardless. Very healthy car counts in all of our racing divisions. For the most part, I was actually really surprised how overall smooth opening night went for the Dakota Speedway and their volunteers and the drivers. And overall, it was a great night of racing. And I had a great time, and it felt so good to be back at the racetrack finally.
And did you handle like staying out late that night? No adverse effects or anything like that?
Because I was busy from the moment I stepped foot on the facility, and by the time John and Jessup kicked me out of the tower to like, let's go, let's do something else other than work on racetrack stuff, I was fine actually. So just because I think I was keeping busy and it was nice outside. And yeah, so I had no tiredness up until around midnight. I felt a little tired because it was cold, but the northern lights were out, so that was pretty cool. So Jessup, myself, John Gartner Jr. and Scotty Gartner decided to have a little photo shoot, taking photos of the night sky and different objects. So the racetrack, race cars, people. It was really entertaining, but eventually I just got cold and I was tired. And as we know from last week's episode, that's a very lethal combination. And I ended up just leaving Jessup at the track. So he found his way home.
That's good that Jessup knows his way back home. We can trust him with that. Excellent. Well,
yeah, it felt good to be back at the racetrack and back doing what I normally do on a race night. So I look forward to the rest of the racing season, and I hope we do race most of the season because it definitely makes this journey called pregnancy go a whole lot quicker.
that is a good point. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Becca. Hope you have some good rest for the rest of the evening, and we'll see you at the track here this upcoming weekend again. So now with Becca in the garage area for the rest of the race, we want to transition to our photo segment, or our kind of throwback segment, with the Hot Sauce Hot Memory Rewind with Issac Hot Sauce Sondrol. Had a little bit of a rough weekend of racing. I know he's been busy in the field farming as well, and so hopefully he can get all of that stuff put behind him and get back to the racetrack, where he actually has looked pretty good to start the season. He's looked really sporty in his IMCA Modified this year. So thank you so much for supporting us on the podcast, Isaac, and we look forward to seeing you at the track once again. If you're a fan or a fellow pit crew member, be sure to stop by the Sondrol pit, as they are some of the friendliest people you will find at the racetrack. Jessup, who do you have to try and stump John? And hopefully I can somewhat assist.
Mason, you got to be assisting tonight.
Well-
Remember, you're a really good assistant.
I don't know where to go from there. But anyways, John, you remember what the two aspects you got to do? Try to get the driver, try to get the year. Tonight we're going to have 3. Try to get the class. Is it late model? Is it super stock?
Whoa, this will be
easy.
interesting.
This should be pretty easy for you. But we got 3 cars for you. Mason, get off of Western Wanderer.
I'm on Facebook right now.
Come on, Mason. You got to
Uh-huh.
assist. Remember, we need some hints.
Ready,
I don't even
John?
have I don't have my tote of pictures, but hopefully we don't need them.
Well, let's get after it. First one should be relatively.
Oh, that's Tim Johnson.
He's 1 for 1.
And that year it looks like. Let's see that paint scheme again. Boy, that's got to be. I'm gonna go with 1997.
A little too far back.
I was going to say 2003.
Really?
A little too far ahead. It is. From what my notes and what my little tabloids say, it's 2001. But that is Tim Johnson in a Wasota Super Stock.
Looks very
Right.
nice.
He wasn't
Ready?
very good in a super stock, from what I remember.
No, he really kind of didn't he? He kind of just sucked in supers.
Yeah, I mean,
How
Could have done better.
eloquently put, John.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
just, he could have done
sucked.
better.
I mean,
So, I mean, he didn't win enough feature races and didn't have enough iconic battles with Dave Moss and
No.
Shane Sobraski and him.
He wasn't any good.
So yeah, it just didn't have enough. No, Tim was really, really, really good in the Superstock days, and he still actually runs a Superstock as well. And his son is actually in a Superstock currently, running over there in kind of the Princeton area now, as well as Brainerd. So, yeah, we'll probably see those guys over at the 100 as well.
ready for number 2, John?
Yes.
Let's go.
Shane Edgington.
You got one part of it right.
I don't know any other Edgingtons.
I want to say I'm not exactly sure who I know it's. I don't remember his other. The other name. Which one?
Brad Edgington.
Brad. Okay. I was like, I know there's another Edgerton. I can't think of the name.
But kind of a cool looking car. A very simple scheme with the old flames flying back. And here comes what I would consider to be the best of the three schemes. You ready?
Is it a throwback?
No, it actually is a really cool looking scheme.
Oh, that is a really
That
cool
is
one.
Kyle Peterlin.
That is correct.
I don't know the year though. 2002?
They're all the same. They're all the same year.
They're all the same.
Oh.
They're all the same 2001.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Nope.
Uh,
Kyle Peterlin. No, Kyle now is in a Sondrol model, but
Yep.
Kyle's from the Iron Range area.
Yep.
Kyle had some very, very good years in the super stock division. So picked up the Wasota 100 win. I think it was 2005 that he picked up the 100 win over in Cedar Lake. I think it was 2005 era when he picked it up. 2004 was the first time I had seen Kyle race in person in a super stock because he went to the Stock Car Stampede in the super stock. Had a very nice run that year. Up front, they had some really good battles because Jay Kittner was there in the 24 J Machine. Steve Beach, if you guys remember Steve Beach in the super stock days, he ended up winning that year over at the Stock Car Stampede in 2004. Stuart Shipke was right up there in the 33 out of the Aberdeen area, and then Kyle was right there as well. So those were kind of your top four cars within that 2004 Superstock A main event. I think they had 42 or 43 Superstocks that year of the Stampede. But also then Kyle transitioned into the late model division in 2007, had a really nice year in 2006 in the Superstocks. Actually was in the running for the national championship that year with Ryan Aho and I don't remember who else was in that battle. I think Dave Moss. Dave Moss won it that year for the Superstocks and he was right in that battle too. But no, it was a fun year to see from Kyle because Kyle's rookie year in the late model ended up winning the Stock Car Stampede in his late model. So that was a feat in itself that year because there was over 50 late models in attendance that year that he won in 2007. The 2006 year though was kind of fun because the year that Kyle, and sorry, I'm going on history lane here, but the year that Kyle was in that nice, very, very, very nice blue paint scheme. Blue was a big theme back in 2006. And I remember that year at the Stampede because it rained all day Friday. It started raining Thursday afternoon at the Stampede, and it rained all day on Friday. We woke up Saturday morning, we were camping there, and it was just like slush. I mean, you walked out there and you would just sink in the ground. It was that wet. Woke up though, and they were dragging the pits, and they're like, "We're going to run." So they ended up running that night. They had 286 cars pull through the back gate that night. And what was really interesting on that night was that the Superstock division had Dave Moss there, first time he had ever been to Jamestown. Ryan Aho was there. Kyle Peterlin was there. Tim Johnson was there. And it was very interesting to watch because you had basically, your top 4 to 5 runners kind of in the Superstock division back there. They were at the Stampede. The only one that was in that mix for like the national title perspective that didn't come was Don Eichens. And Don actually was running over in KRA. And KRA actually, I don't think they ran that Saturday, they ran that Sunday. And Don stayed back because he's like, I still think I can get 2 shows in directly. And unfortunately he only got the 1 show in. I think he ended up winning it though, so it's still counted pretty good for points related stuff. But that was back in the old message board days with like the 2020 page when you used to be on the old message board. And I remember messages going back and forth, flying back and forth, and Don's like, "Are they going to race? Are they going to race? Are they going to race?" Well, he was still over there in the Wilmer area and didn't have time to make it over. Otherwise, he probably would have been there that night too. So that was kind of a fun little trip down memory lane to see all those guys in the national points title over in Jamestown for the Stampede.
A lot of heavy hitters in one spot.
Right? A ton of heavy hitters. And then you throw Todd Carter into that mix because Todd had a great 2006 year in his Superstock too.
Oh yeah, it's another heavy hitter. I always forget that Todd was a very successful Superstock racer. So nice. Well, that is an awesome trip down memory lane. Thank you once again, Jessup, for supplying the photos for that, for the hot sauce, hot memory rewind. I'm getting better at saying that.
Hot memory rewind. Ha 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 ha.
Indeed. Well, let's go into our track
Oh.
packer report. We had 3 full days of racing. I'll kind of kick it off with my Friday night adventures, which was over in West Fargo. A nice little 15-minute drive for me, a rarity that I somehow pass up more often than I probably should. But had a pretty good opener. Track had a lot of moisture. We've had like 2 weeks worth of rain for several days. I mean, we had dry days from like Tuesday on, but that moisture has just sat. Like if you go out in the ditches, like even still today, there's standing water in the ditches still. So we got plenty of moisture for a little while down here in the Red River Valley, and so track definitely had a little bit of character. But I will give kudos to the drivers; they handled it pretty well for the conditions. They didn't really drive over their heads too much, and I mean, you had an incident or two, but you'll have that on any given race night. But like if you start on the sport mods, they had 18 of them. They went caution free. So shout out to the Sport Mods for putting on a nice clean race. We had Ryan Rested, the winner in the 7R in front of Brendan Urbach and Landon Matz. And so great run for those top 3 to start their season. We move on to the NX Legends, and they had a couple long green flag runs as well. Sean Johnson, who is also pretty fast out of the gate, it seems like. I think it's his 2nd or 3rd time winning the season opener there in the NX Legends. And so he held off Scotty Richardson and Ryan Broseth for the win there, and they had 26 legend cars there, so a very good turnout for the legends. Hobby stocks, we had 11 show up. We had Tanner Engen in the 44T picking up the win. He actually took last season off, and so it was nice for him to get back to the track and back in victory lane. He mentioned in his victory lane interview that really sucked for him to spend a year away from the racetrack. It kind of just ate him up, and so he was definitely itching to get back at the track and get back into victory lane. So great start to the 2024 season for him. Race Saver Sprint Cars, we had a familiar face, Andy Pake, get the win in front of Ty Wilkie and Amelia Eisenschenk. They had a little bit of attrition to start that race, just a couple of mechanical failures that kind of dwindled the field. We had 10 of those IMCA Race Saver Sprint Cars show up, and they clicked some pretty good laps on a very fast and tacky track. And so it's always fun to see sprint cars whoop around the Red River Valley Speedway. The modifieds had 12 of them in attendance, actually 11, considering Jordan Sowers wasn't able to make the heat race. But that was a really, really good race between Dave Shipley and Jesse Skalicki. They battled throughout the entirety of that feature, got side by side multiple times, didn't really make too much contact. And Jesse Skalicki, the Fargo Flash, ended up edging out Dave Shipley at the line for the feature win. So great race in the modifieds. And then these stock cars finished off the program. We almost eliminated the entire field coming to the green because had a little cars get sideways in front of the field, but they all kind of like were watching ahead of their air cleaners, and they were able to kind of continue on for a little bit. And so Rob Van Mill had a very stellar season last season in 2023. He starts off the season with a win in front of Rick Schultz and Calvin Kesselberg. And so that was your opening night in West Fargo for the Red River Valley Speedway. And so nice to get their season kicked off, and a pretty good crowd attendance too. Very good showing by the fans as well. So we move on over to the other side of the state where the Dakota Speedway got to kick off their season. Jessup and John, and along with Becca, were in attendance. Jessup, what were your takeaways from the season opener?
It was good to see cars out on the track and actually racing for something rather than hot laps.
Yeah, there was actually a period where before like the previous weekend, I was like, I could just do a whole bunch of highlight videos of testing tunes. That's what we're resorting to at this point.
Yeah, it was good to see. Good to have a bunch of the drivers back at the track, and it was fun to see all of the drivers who came out to race in the first ever IMCA Stock Car Weekly show. So definitely a fun time. John, what'd you think?
No, yeah, I thought it was a very nice opener. I think Becca, she said it really well earlier to where I felt like our crew was prepared, officials were prepared, drivers were ready to go. We didn't have a ton of wrecks by any means throughout the night. I think the most interesting part that was out there was some of those opening night gremlins were definitely present. For instance, you had some drivers that had tranny issues. You had a couple drivers that had brake issues just during the first race of the season, and then even a fuel issue as well. So just stuff that, is kind of uncommon that you see, but it's kind of that opening night / opening weekend, just kind of gremlins that sometimes, put new stuff in over the off season, just doesn't get worn in yet, or there's something that's broke on it, and it just kind of, it just kind of is one of those things that happens during more the openers than typically as you get later into the racing season. So, no, but besides that, it was pretty, it was kind of, I mean, a status quo opener / I shouldn't say status quo, but a more of a, kind of your maybe mild opener for like a Dakota Speedway perspective. There wasn't a whole lot of like I said, carnage, a lot of battles throughout the fields, but nothing that really was really too controversial, non-controversial, or anything else from that perspective.
Well, and I find it interesting, especially at the beginning of the year too. Like we all make fantasy picks across multiple tracks. And so like the beginning of the season is always just like, who do you pick here? Because like sometimes the way I pick people, it's like, okay, they have like attended a test and tune session. So they probably got all their wires checked and all that stuff put together. Whereas someone who's like going cold turkey and that's their first race, it's like, wonder what's not like fully secured or bolted on, because that actually does play a factor.
Yeah. And overall, it was a good opener. I mean, like I said, we didn't really have anything from a network broadcast perspective that was too out of the ordinary. Beck broadcasted us on Friday night. So I think they had a nice broadcast that came through there too. And Mason, I'll do a quick recap then of the results.
Yep, go for it.
us and too. So hobby stock drivers, we had 17 of them. Like Becca said, some of our hobby stock drivers were actually in the field this past week, getting things caught up. So we're missing a few drivers there. But still a very nice car count for the opener. Seth Keller started really well last year over in Jamestown on opening night and even at Dakota Speedway, and picked up the feature win to start his season over at Dakota Speedway. Actually swept the night. He also picked up his heat win too. So congratulations to him. He held off a hard-charging Bill Haltberg, Jeremy Engelhardt, Josh Rourke, and Terry Davenport had a very nice showing out there as well in that nice 29T Looney Tunes scheme out there on Friday. So Sport Compacts, Chris Yost picked up where he left off last year. He was by far the class of the field, and he ended up picking up the win. Good battles between Alex Thompson and Zach Eubanks for second. But Chris was kind of in a field of his, kind of in a basically field of his own on his stuff. He bested the field by about 3.5 seconds. So good job to Chris. Chris picked up in that 00 car because he had some problems up over in Minot on the opener. So that was nice to see. Legends, Preston Martin was on a rail. He picked up the heat win and he picked up the feature win. There was a caution with a few laps to go that bunched the field back up. They have a lot of good battles from about second to about eighth. However, Preston had everybody covered. Donovan Weiss came up from 12th to second. Austin Weiss went 11th to third. Casey Martin was right there in the top five. Noah Madler was right there in the top five as well. So some good representation there as well. And then in your stock cars, which like Becca and Jessa mentioned, it is the first time that they would be a full-time class at the Dakota Speedway. We had 19 stock car drivers that checked in for attendance. We also had 36 legends on opening night, so quite a few legends. But the 19 stock car drivers, Mark Dahl looked really good in his brand new chassis. So we saw him over in Minot on their opener. He won his heat on Friday night over at the Dakota Speedway, was kind of walking away from everybody in the feature until a caution came out with only a few laps to go with about 3 laps remaining. And Mark got way too high on the restart over in turns 1 and 2, almost blew it off the edge over there. And Scotty Gardner was right behind him in his Mopar and did almost the exact same thing. So that opened the door for Hunter Domagala. Hunter's been very strong in the streets, 4-time defending champion, picked up the first night win in his stock car. And Hunter will tell you too, it was a different experience to go through and run the stock car compared to the street. So looking forward to see as the summer keeps progressing how that all transpires with him in the stock car division. Since Dahl's got a stock car, Sean Strand, unfortunately he got involved in a wreck on lap 1, turn 1 of lap 1 with a feature and got taken out. But he's got a brand new stock car, looked really good in that as he raced. Also picked up the win in that one too. And then he had a lot of the Minot guys come over. Adam Goff, very good representation from him, finished right up there in the top 3. You also had, Gabe DeShaw came over as well. Casey Binstock was there from the Dickinson area. And then some of our local boys that transitioned over into the stock car division as well. So Sean Volk was our hard charger. I mean, he moved up quite a bit within that feature event, started in the back after he had problems in his heat race and finished right outside the top 5. So, but no, good feature within your stock car division and good first night for them for the representation for the 2024 season. And I'm excited to see how that division basically kind of grows and feeds into the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. I think the Dakota Classic Modified Tour stock car division could be very interesting this year with some more of our local representation here within the state, along with a lot of the travelers that come in. So that should be a good battle here within the July timeframe. Mods, Marlon Seiler picked up where he left off in 2023. He had a very strong end of the season in 2023. He was kind of walking away with the feature race. However, there was a couple cautions in there, and Sean Strand and Jeremy Keller were right on his rear deck lid, and Jeremy had that high side just starting to work in just a little bit more and a little bit more. 1 and 2 was definitely better towards the bottom of the speedway, but 3 and 4, if you could get that middle to high line, you could get the momentum come off and you could really catch people down the front straightaway. Keller did that with only a few laps left on Marlon and picked up the feature win. Unfortunately, though, Marlon broke as he crossed the start finish line under the white flag. He had a fuel leak and actually ran out of fuel as they crossed the line. So, which is funny because I was kind of in my mind, I was like, did he run out of gas? Well, it turns out he had a fuel leak and ended up the fuel pickup didn't pick up the rest that was in the tank. So he did that was actually one of the areas to where opening night gremlins, you don't see that a whole lot throughout the year, but that was one thing with Marlon. So unfortunately he finished towards the back, but he had a strong representation during opening night. But Sean Strand was up there finishing in the top 2, and we just had a really good night overall. 24 IMCA modified drivers checked in. We had 103 cars total on opening night, so pretty good car count for opening night over at the Dakota Speedway, and a great way to kick off the season. But yeah, that was our opening night over in Mandan. So got everything finished up, and just had a overall very smooth opener.
It's always good to get started on a smooth note with no major issues, and you can kind of use that as a good foundation and move it forward throughout the rest of the season and summer. And so, yeah, very good. I got to watch the entire broadcast on online, and so definitely was entertained. Although you'll have to point it out. Did you use your word of the week? I didn't pick it out.
No, we talked about it at the end of the night. I completely forgot about it. So I'm 0 and 1 right now for word of the week. So we have to come up with another word for this week. So I do remember to say it, because we talked about it at the end of the night and we're like, we never said the word of the week. And we're like, nope, completely forgot about it. And I had a perfect opportunity in some of those races too, with a few of those announcing opportunities, and I've completely forgot to use it.
I was like, I tried to listen for it, and I'm like, I didn't quite hear it, so I had to check with you because I know you knew you'd remember.
There was definitely a few times that I got a little bit too excited on the mic. I started growling, so that definitely was not a good thing.
He gets a little excited when he announces Hunter's last name.
He had like 8 different variations of Hunter's last name.
Well, it's not the Mogla?
The Magla or the Mega. You had 18 different formations of it, John. It was interesting.
I think my favorite variation has to be, if I can do it properly, give it up for Hunter Damagawa.
I know. I try to get like the complete growl in there. It's like Hunter. Like, I mean, it's just a complete like low growl, and I can do it better when I'm actually on the mic over there, because you just you start building up to it from announcing based stuff. So yeah, so I said it, and Becca looks at me and she gave me the the Becca eye, pretty much, the side eye, where she's like, I can't believe you just did that, and I was like, oh yeah, it happened.
Yeah, she's good at doing that, John. Don't upset her.
She's had lots of practice.
Yep, on me.
Yeah, I'm sure Jessup's gotten that look many times too.
I'm immune.
John is too at this point.
John taught me how to be immune to it.
I was going to say, I'm immune. I mean, it's just nothing really bothers me.
Yeah, you guys are great influences for each other. This is awesome. Anyways,
remember, I am Mr. Miserable, so it just it fits.
It does. Indeed, it does. Well, we'll move on to the Saturday race that I got to over in Alexandria at the Viking Speedway for their season opener, and they had a special season opener as they had the U.S. Structural Buildings Minnesota Late Model Challenge Series on hand, and that was the first time in I forgot to check. I know it's been at least a year or two since late models have been there. And I mean, late models on a half mile seems like a no-brainer to me. And they had a pile of them show up, 39 of them. So very good turnout for the challenge series there. And the stands were packed. A lot of fans in attendance for the season opener. And they typically have a good crowd, but like when you bring in late models, especially to Alexandria for the first time in a long time, you're going to get some fans showing up, and they were treated to a real great program all night. They had 117 cars show up, so very good car count. The infield was packed with cars, and then the outer field was packed with all the towers there as well. And so getting into the results, they started with the Midwest Modifieds. Great battle up front between Taylor Bitson and Corey Stork. Taylor Bitson was leading that race from start to finish until about 3 or 4 laps to go. They had a late caution, and Corey Stork, who had gotten around him, and then the caution came out, so he had to go back. And then on the last restart, got around him coming to the white flag. And Corey picked up where he left off last year, and he's also a multi-season opener winner at Viking Speedway. He did that the previous year as well. And so big congrats to Corey Stork for winning in front of Taylor Bitson and Josh Music, your top 3. In the Wissota Street Stocks, another great race. They went caution-free for a full field of 24 street stocks. They had 18 Midwest mods, by the way. And so all of 24 street stocks put on a great show. The battle was between Ty Egan and Kyle Dykoff, with Bradenbauer kind of lurking back behind them just a little bit. And Kyle was working the bottom around Ty Egan. Ty was running the high side, and they kind of exchanged the lead a couple of times within the last 3 laps. And ultimately, Ty had to set it in on the high side through 3 and 4, and he got the momentum to carry him to the checkered flag. And so that is win number 4 in a row for young Ty Egan from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Second was Kyle Dykoff, and Bradenbauer was your 3rd place finisher there. Then the late models took to the track, and so they had 25 cars take the green there for 30 laps, which it's quite a bit at Alexandria. And so definitely a long race for a lot of things to play out. But Sam Mars was pretty much in command throughout the entirety of that race. They had like a 25 lap run to start that race, and then they had a caution come out, and then it kind of was caution after caution, but the restarts were entertaining. I think the second to last restart was when I think it was Tyler Peterson that did a slide job on Cole Searing, because Cole had gotten around Sam, and then they were kind of exchanging positions, the top 3, throughout that last restart or 2. And so ultimately, in the end, Cole Searing got the win for his 2nd straight Challenge Series win, as he had won the previous night in I-94. So big win for Cole Searing in front of Tyler Peterson, and Sam Mars was your podium finishers in the late models. Wissota Hornets, now a regular staple at the Viking Speedway, along with the I-94 EMR Speedway. That was another battle between Matthew Dittman and Jeff Roner. They've been putting on battles all throughout the season to start off the year, and so they were nose to tail the entire way, and ended up with Matthew Dittman picking up the win in front of Jeff Roner and Cole Campson as well in the top 3. And then the last race they got in for that night, because they have a curfew, a 10:45 curfew. So fortunately, the super stocks weren't able to get their feature race, and they'll make it up at a later date. But the last race that they got in was the Wissota Modifieds, and that was another barn burner down to the end. Brady Gertis kind of checked out, and Dusty Bitson, those two have battled numerous times over in Viking Speedway, and Dusty just slowly caught him towards the end, made the pass with a lap to go, and got the win for the season opener in the Wissota Modifieds. Gertis 2nd, and Jason Tennis was your top 3 finisher for the Wissota Modifieds. So that was the season opener at Alexandria of the Viking Speedway. Very, very successful opener. The track was awesome all night. Multiple grooves, like late models like slicked it off and cleaned it off so that way they could still race top to bottom. It was a gorgeous facility the entire night.
I would say, Mason, the track looked really good. I watched a lot of the live stream video stuff and everything else, and boy, they had that track in tip-top shape to where they run top, they could run bottom. Like you said, the late model slicked off the middle, and there was a lot of room on that track to move and shake throughout the field. So that was a lot of really good positives for them on their opening night. They had a very nice season opener.
Yeah, kudos to the track prep crew and everyone there for putting on a really great show. That was well done. John, you got to go to the Nodak Speedway on Sunday to finish out your weekend. Tell us about the Nodak Speedway on Sunday.
Yeah, correct. So Saturday, I didn't go anywhere Saturday. Nothing really was super close to us on Saturday without driving quite a bit. So Sunday, we went up to up to Minot. So for their second race of the season, they opened up their season last week up there, and it was a very nice Sunday night program for them too. Mother's Day program. Finished heats, within kind of that hour to 15-minute window for all their classes. They had 96 total cars in attendance directly on Sunday night. In your hobby stock division, really good battle up front. Actually, probably one of the best races of the night too was the hobby stocks and the sport mods. Those two had some really nice battles. But in the hobby stock division, Ethan New kind of looked like he was going to be on a tear a little bit on Sunday night, and he was for quite a while until you had Diesel Rainer kind of working his way to the front, trying to go 4 in a row over in Nodak because he won the final 2 races of the 2023 season during Motor Magic, won the opener last week, and he just kind of was working his way to the front. Brenner Grinstead was also working his way to the front as well. He was kind of getting right up there into that mix as well. Brenner's got a really nice looking car this year. I really like his paint scheme. It really stands out on the track too. But no, Ethan was leading and got loose going into turns 1 and 2 and stacked up the field. Ended up sideways, and after that he was a DNF for the night. Got back out, but had some problems. Didn't the steering wasn't quite right, and ended up in the infield for the night. But no, Diesel Rainer ended up winning the feature event. It was a very interesting battle because Trevor Haas was towards the back pretty much almost all night. It just didn't seem like the car was running right. Spun out actually in the feature event, restarted towards the tail end of the field, and actually got back up to the top 3 to finish it up. So Kyler Satrin also started in the back of the feature event and ended up in the top 5 as well. So some of those guys were moving and shaking towards the front. So I think points battles in that division are going to be very interesting here over the next 8 weeks because they end their season on a 10-week stretch, and then they will end their season for points at the end of June timeframe. So
Yep.
so it'll be a very, very interesting points battle for those hobby stocks over there in the Nodak Speedway. But again, very nice battle up front. Sport compacts, Chris Yost picked up where he left off on Friday night and picked up another feature win. So he was kind of the class of the field for that 16 car event. So Chris picked up his second win of the weekend, and he looks like he's going to be a force to be reckoned with again here within the 2024 season. So congratulations to Chris in the Sport Compact division. Sport mods, they had several cautions, but it was probably the best race of the night in my opinion. The track had started to kind of slick off just a little bit. There was still quite a bit of moisture in the track. However, a lot of the guys were running the bottom. Darren Medler went to the cushion, and by the cushion, I mean he was at the top line on the speedway. He was running the top of the track, especially through turns 1 and 2. Medler would get the momentum built up. 3 and 4 was very interesting because he wouldn't stay up high all the time. He would enter high and he would kind of diamond off, and he had a really good run. Robbie Roselli was running the bottom. It was kind of the class of the field to start off that feature event. And then you had guys like Darren working his way up because he finished second last week. Gabe Deshaw, who was your winner last week, was working his way up as well within the field. And you just kind of knew they were going to be coming to the front directly within that feature event. And they did. And eventually Robbie was on the bottom. He had messed up a little bit in 3 and 4, and Darren got around him, diamonding it off. So Robbie pushed up. Darren just crossed over to win around him on the bottom and stayed on the high side, and then Gabe Deshaw joined that mix in just a few laps after that. But Darren Medler picked up a feature win for the year. Found out that his wife was the individual that designed that paint scheme for him this year. So very nice looking car for him because it's different than his traditional blue. It's got the blue, pink, and white on it this year, and it really stands out at the racetrack. So congratulations to Darren. Very nice run there in that 74 machine, picking up a feature win over in Nodak. In the stock car division, it was a battle between a veteran and kind of a rookie driver still. So Mike Hagan won last week. He got to the front during the feature event, and he had Gabe Deshaw right on his back bumper the whole way. Gabe was a little bit quicker, was kind of giving him a little bit of a love tap as he went into the turns, both in 3 and 4 and in 1 and 2. And Gabe eventually got the bottom to work, got around him, and picked up a stock car feature win over in Minot on Mother's Day. So congratulations to Gabe. He thanks his mom quite a bit for all the work she does in the pits and helps him throughout the season as well. So Gabe picked up a feature win in the stock car division over in Nodak. In your modified division, it was a driver that we weren't sure if he'd be making a return to racing that ended up winning on Sunday night. Hot Rod Hellebust. Robert Hellebust was back in victory lane. He's running Medler's car over at the Nodak Speedway, and Robert was slowly but surely working his way to the front. made the pass for the lead with about 10 laps to go. Had to hold off some challengers behind him because Steven Pfeiffer was slowly working his way to the front as well. Got up to second, but Robert was never truly challenged from like a fierce battle by Steven. Steven was usually right around that 3 to 4 car lengths behind him towards the end of the race, and so Robert Hellebuss picked up his win and back in Nodak in victory lane. So congratulations to Robert. Thank you as well over to the Nodak crew. The track was in very good shape again on Sunday for the feature events. Had a lot of very nice battles within that feature event time frame, and they've had a very nice start to their 2024 season.
Yeah, awesome to see that they got a couple races in. They got a leg up on everyone else in the state for racing, and so though I'm sure that racetrack will continue to improve more and more as the season progresses. To the last part of our track packer report from Sunday, I went down to the Casino Speedway to finish off the weekend and see their season opener. Very good job by the track pack crew. They added new clay to their surface, and they had a couple of tests and tunes the previous week. And first time through, the track was pretty rough. Second time was a lot better, and by the time they got to Sunday, honestly, the track was pretty smooth, at least from my vantage point. Very good racing. They could race top to bottom throughout all the features, and so very good job by everyone involved at the Casino Speedway for a good job getting that clay worked in, and I'm sure they'll continue to improve upon it as the season goes forward. They had 68 total cars in their classes for their season opener, and we kicked things off with this Wissota Street Stocks. That went to Jaden Bogue. He is down out of the Huron, South Dakota area, and he actually had a pretty good weekend. He finished second over at Huron the previous night, and he was dominant. Like, he checked out to the lead, and no one was catching him. He had a very strong run this weekend. So kudos to Jaden Bogue for winning in the Wissota Street Stocks in front of Jason Marco and Corey Giesinger. Then we had the Gen X late models take the track, another dominating performance by Tony Croninger. He had a little bit of misfortune in his heat race, but he started up towards the front and was able to lead every single lap en route to the win there in front of Trevor Walsh and Kurt Kranz. Then we moved to the Wissota Modifieds. They had 11 of those Wissota mods in attendance. Very good race up front. Caden Schmaling was checked out from the field until a late caution kind of bunched things up. And then he had Mike Stearns and Joseph Thomas behind him. And Stearns and Thomas were running the high side, and Caden was running low. So obviously, being the leader, you don't know exactly where it's supposed to be. For some reason, I don't know why, but Joseph Thomas took the bottom on the restart and let Stearns have the high side. So I'm not sure why he did that. Probably thought he could get a better run off the bottom on the restart, but it ended up getting Mike Stearns the lead, and they kind of exchanged a couple of sliders. And unfortunately, Joseph Thomas had spun out a restart later, but Mike Stearns gets the win from sixth in front of Caden Schmaling and Bryce Borgen, who's jumped into Wissota Modified this year and put on a great run for his first time down at Casino Speedway in quite some time. So good run to those guys in the Wissota Mods. In the Midwest Modifieds, another familiar face put on a dominating performance. Mike Nichols in the 67 was your feature winner there. Not really a big shocker there. His brother got second, Tommy Nichols in the 28 machine, followed by Derek Reek in the 34J. They had 11 Wissota Midwest mods in attendance as well. And then the Wissota late models, they had 14 of them, and that was a caution-free race, which I would have been interested to see what a caution would have done. Chad Becker, when he starts on the pole, it's like, okay, it's pretty much game over at this point. But he was running the bottom. Charlie Olson, who finished in second, and Jason Good running in third. They were running the high side, and they weren't really losing any ground to Chad. It's just by the time they got to those positions, they were like a third to half a track back. And so it's like, unless you get a caution, not much you could really do. And so Chad Becker starts his season off with a win at the Casino Speedway. And then the Hornets, another familiar face. No surprise here. The Van Destroyer, as Jessup calls them. Adam Vandersteen held off Bradley Rosso in the 5 machine. And then Josh Gebhardt, first time out on the racetrack in Wissota Hornet, finished in third. And so that wrapped up the weekend at Casino Speedway. And I was very tired by the time I got home that night. So that is our track pack report, our first big track pack report of the season. So we move on to what's upcoming this next weekend. We go to Mr. Dakota Dirt for the schedule updates for the state of North Dakota.
I'll remember, race fans, drivers, supporters, and everyone else, if you want your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, recaps, as well as weather forecasts, you need to check out Dakota Dirt. They are on social media platforms as well as dakotadirt.org. Remember, check out Dakota Dirt to find out all of your racing news.
Thank you, John. Looking at this upcoming week, it should be another good week of racing across the state. And for our friends north of the border, Friday, Dakota Speedway looks to get week number 2 of racing in the books. The same goes for Red River and River Cities. So, really strong, dominant way to start the weekend with 3 great tracks, putting on what I would imagine 3 great shows. Saturday, only 2 races, but still 2 good tracks. Estevan Motor Speedway, our friends north of the border, look to get their season rocking and rolling, along with Devil's Lake Speedway, who just had a really good NLRA show, which just took place this past weekend over there. So they should look to get their season going into their second week. So that is your Saturday. And then Sunday, you got to go back up to the playground of power and Nodak Speedway in week number 3 of their shortened season points championship season. So they're already about a quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
Their season points. So points have never been tighter.
As
according
some
to-
would say, the points could never be tighter.
But
I can't wait for Friday because I know we'll talk about points already with Becca.
oh boy. Needless to say, that is what's going on in our area and our neck of the woods. And I know Mason's going to help us out here with some other stuff around us. And, if you want to know about the tracks to the west, you can watch the Western Roundup that Mason and I do every week, where we recap out the racing out west and kind of highlight what's going on. It's kind of a fun, laid back. What do you say, Mason? Maybe 20-minute show, if that?
Yeah, we'll keep it around 20 minutes or so, kind of highlighting the winners, hard chargers, and the upcoming races.
Yep. So, Mason, any interesting races coming up this week around our fellow states?
Well, we have a lot more tracks starting their seasons or planning to start their seasons this upcoming weekend. And originally, there was supposed to be an XR Super Series race at Ogilvie on Thursday the 16th. That's been rescheduled for the 3rd of July. The only other track that's racing someone in their neck of woods is Grand Rapids, opening up their season on Thursday. On Friday, the Brown County Speedway in Aberdeen is opening up their season and then continuing their seasons at Fiesta City Speedway in Montevideo, I-94 Speedway, Princeton, Menominee, Red Cedar Speedway as well. And so a lot of racing taking place on Friday. I believe at Montevideo, they have a Pure Stock and Hornet special taking place. So if you're a Pure Stock or Hornet driver, be sure to take that in. On Saturday, the 18th, we have Brainerd and Ogilvie racing, as well as the Rice Lake Speedway over in Wisconsin and the Viking Speedway continuing their season as well. And then Sunday, we have Buffalo River Speedway, Casino Speedway, and the Granite City Motor Park Racing. So there's going to be quite a bit of racing taking place this upcoming weekend. Now that most everyone's got their season underway, we're still waiting for a few tracks to open up kind of the following week, which is going to be the following week is going to be pretty hectic. And so if you want to get your car out to the track before the big Memorial Day weekend swing comes upon us, this would be the weekend to do so. Plenty of options around the region to do that. So that's what's coming for this weekend in racing as we display the white flag and give a shout out to our good friend Brody Carlsrud, the B1 IMCA stock car. He started his season finally last Friday at the River Valley Speedway. Unfortunately, it did not go so great for him. He had a little bit of a work to do this weekend. So hopefully he'll be able to get everything fixed up for this upcoming weekend. Be sure to check out his podcast, The Real Deal with B1. He has put out several episodes to this point, and I'm sure this episode, or if he has time to get an episode together, will be very interesting to kind of show you the the behind the scenes of what it's like to work on a wrecked race car. And so hope for some better luck for you, Brody, and thank you for supporting us on the Track Packers podcast. So we will move on to wins of the week, and I do have some wins of the week from Becca. She sent me some wins of the week. So should we give her the floor first?
Sure.
Yeah, ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay, so Becca gave me 3 wins of the week. Her first win goes to Trevor Sarr, and you guys can kind of attest to this as well, as Trevor is one of the NX Legend drivers from the Jamestown area. He raced over Dacotah Speedway this last Friday, and one of the track volunteers, Stacy Little, had her car break down en route to the track on Friday, and thankfully Trevor was on his way to the track, wasn't too far ahead of her, and so he was able to turn around and pick her up, so that way she was able to get to the races and help out for the program. And so kudos to you, Trevor. Oh, you got something to add to that, John?
Yeah, I'm going to add to that too. I'm actually going to add one more person to that for Becca too. I talked to Stacy on Friday afterwards, and I have to give a shout out to Billy Caro too. So his tow company actually came out to tap and picked up her car and took it back to Jamestown to get it serviced. So another one of our drivers in the local area that helped out Stacy.
Yeah, so great job for all involved for getting Stacy to the track, and that's the stories you don't really get to see once you get to the racetrack. It's just like how you all get there. And so kudos to everyone involved for making that happen. The second win that Becca had was for Dakota Speedway Hall of Famer Brian Swenson, and he was the announcer on Beck Sports, which John, Jessup, and Becca had mentioned were part of the season opener. And so he, let's see, he wasn't, if I'm reading this correctly. Do you want to add some insight to this, John, while I read what Becca wrote? Because she wrote a novel.
He did a very
Yeah,
good job. He was
Go ahead.
very insightful. He was very confident and well spoken. He represented the racetrack and the racing community for our area in a very professional and well put job. And
Agreed. He did a really good job from an announcing piece of it to be informative, to be basically that kind of that analyst that has all the background within everybody else. And Brian would be really good from an announcing piece of it to even help out, if he's interested in ever helping out from the racetrack perspective, feel free to hit us up as well, because, even from just being as part of that commentator aspect and just knowledgeable aspect, he was very, very, very good at it.
Yeah, and apparently he's never announced before, so.
Nope. That was his first.
Wow. Good job to Brian Swenson. I remember watching him growing up in several racing divisions, so familiar face to me at least. And then the third win that Becca had was for Robert Hot Rod Hellebust for getting into victory lane shortly after spending a couple of years away from the track with a back and neck injury that he had suffered at one of the early season wrecks a couple of years back at the Nodak Speedway. So didn't take him long to find victory lane, and he even looked good at the season opener. So not a complete surprise. So kudos to you, Hot Rod Hellebust. Jessup, who do you got for wins of the week?
Well, I'm going to take an easy one here. I'm going to go with Hunter Damagala getting the first IMCA Stock Car feature win. That will be held at our Dakota Speedway for weekly racing. That's kind of a cool deal. I'm not surprised that he won. I'm kind of shocked it was so early in the season, though, with the transition being made from Wissota Street Stock to IMCA Stock Car, which, as it's been mentioned numerous times, the handling and driving of it are kind of night and day different between the Wissota Street Stock and the IMCA Stock Car. So, big thumbs up to Hunter and his team for pulling off such an amazing feat. Sometimes you gotta get the lucky bounces and the lucky flags, and he was in the right place at the right time and made the right move to put himself in victory lane. My second one's got to be the Wissota Challenge Series is out racing right now, and being a late model guy, I love seeing the late models make it out, and they had a very nice variety of tracks. A large 3/8 over at I-94, the large half mile over at Viking, and then you go over to Granite City, which is a lot smaller, almost like a little bull ring for them to go elbows up and put some battling on. Not saying it is a bull ring, but it is a lot smaller than the other two tracks previously mentioned. And overall, racing across the 3 nights seemed to be really good. Good fields of cars. Not a lot of complaints on my radar that I've heard so far. So hats off to them for getting their season off. And that's about it. Oh, third one goes to Dusty Zomer, picking up a nice 410 win sprint car race down at Knoxville. I think that's been a long time coming for him. I think I'm not going to throw a date to risk getting a yellow flag, but multiple years since he has won a 410 feature at Knoxville.
Good set of wins.
Yep.
John, who do you got for wins of the week?
Okay, so I'm going to do 3 of them as well. So first one has to go to Ty Agan and his team. Ty has been on a tear to start this season and has been involved in some very, very, very close finishes and battles already within the Wissota Street Stock division. So they've been putting on quite the show over there at I-94 as well as the Viking Speedway here this past weekend. So Ty's got several wins already to his name this year, and congrats to him. He's had a very, very nice start to his 2024 campaign and can't wait to see as we progress into the Street Stock Tour here upcoming in just a few weeks. So second one of the week has to go to Lucas Rodin. Lucas picked up a couple of wins this year as well this past weekend, as well as a hard charger over at I-94 in his Midwest Modified. So but no, Lucas and Scott Binns had a whale of a battle over at the Devils Lake Speedway on Saturday. Lucas was on the bottom, Scott was on the high side. They ran several laps side by side clean over there, and Lucas picked up the win. And then he went over to Buffalo River on Sunday and did more of the same on Mother's Day to pick up another win over there at the Glendon Playground for the Buffalo River Speedway. The last win of the week has to go over to Cole Sering. Cole picked up back-to-back wins with the Challenge Series to start his season. So congratulations over there to Cole. The 46 late models checked in Friday night over at the I-94 Speedway. And then you had 39 late models that checked in over at Viking, and Cole fended off some very hard competition to pick up the first 2 night victories there in his Wissota late models. So also a very, very, very sharp paint scheme for Cole this year again too on that 10 late model. So nice to see that that he started off his year strong here for the late model campaign, because again, remember, 20 shows for national championship points. So so picking up some very, very tough competition wins right away to start the year, and he's going to be a contender again this year for that national title. So congratulations to Cole as he started his 2024 campaign.
Yeah, definitely a great start to the season for Cole Sering. I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to be able to run the entire series from what he's said, but he's definitely going to be a guy to watch. I'll be interested to see what his schedule looks like as the season kind of progresses. I'll add 3 more wins. I'll give another shout out to Jaden Bogue for having a great weekend in the Wissota Street Stock down in Huron, finished runner-up to Andy Rosso, and then finished off the weekend at Casino Speedway on Sunday for the win, because he typically doesn't go up to Casino Speedway at a race, and so I was kind of a surprise to see him there, and he dominated that race, like I said, and so very good weekend for the 20 junior machine. The second win, I will give it to Brody Troutgruben for getting the win up at River City Speedway in front of a very stacked field of late models. And I talked to him before the season started, and he was kind of like bummed with himself. Like he didn't think he had a great 2023 season. And so to get it started off on the great note over in River Cities in front of a very stacked field of late models, very good start to the 2024 for Brody Troutgruben. And then my third one, I'm actually just going to give it to Wissota late models in general. John mentioned 46 late models over in I-94. He had 24 over in Grand Forks. And so we have a lot of late models, and not everyone's even ready to go. I've heard there's still some people that haven't been able to get to a race yet, and they had a good car count in Alexandria, Devil's Lake this past weekend. And so there's going to be a lot of good competition this year in the Wissota late model class. And so I'll be excited to see, especially for the bigger paying shows, the prestigious shows as they happen throughout the summer and towards the end of the year, should have some very healthy fields for late models as we get closer and closer to that invitational season.
Now remember, Now, late model drivers. So the three of us that are on this podcast right now put together a program for the Stock Car Stampede in Jamestown, 53rd year this year. And last year was a lot of fun at the Stock Car Stampede with the late model division. And again, if you haven't been there ever within a late model or the past 5 years and you would be interested in coming, hit us up. Stampede Shakedown on Facebook. Message us individually if you were interested because we have essentially 6 spots. We usually take 6 spots for entry fees and for travel expenses, and hit us up because you will be able to come over and we will treat you to a great weekend over at the Stock Car Stampede September 20th and 21st. So again, drivers, if you're interested, hit us up.
I will say, speaking on that note, I actually got in touch with a listener from the podcast this past weekend in Alexandria. He's from the Cedar Lake area. You probably heard of the name Pat Kelly. Drives number
Oh,
63 with Soda Late Model. And I want to thank him for listening to us on a regular basis. I know he didn't, he's like, you don't have to give me a shout. I'm like, I'm going to anyway. But I did mention to him about the Stampede, and he's actually considering coming to the Stampede. And so he would be a great addition to
Mhm.
the Stock Car Stampede. So appreciate you listening to us, and hopefully you have some good success in 2024 as this season gets more and more throughout the summer. And so, any closing thoughts as we start to wrap up episode 9?
Well, well, this is slightly controversial, depending to the listeners. Mason, I may have found the old power ranking formula that we had.
Oh my.
I have it, Jessup. If you need it, I have it.
I
Because
figured
I
out how to
remember
get.
it to a T on what we
We
used
have
to do.
two. I've got it down from just a couple minutes of looking at the last couple months that we did of it, or the last couple weeks, and I figured out up to 2 races, the multiplier in it, and think I think we could go that route for a bit, and then I think we should do our personal views of the IMCA top drivers from each side of the state for mods and stock cars, and then we should compare it to what the old power ranking system states us to be at.
Be pretty easy to kind of organize it from like formula versus like John,
Yes.
Jessup, Mason.
Yep, I think it would be pretty interesting because the way we were discussing it, you would cover out east. You would take Cheyenne, Red River, and Ada for those classes,
Mhm.
and then John and I would take the western side, and we can give you another track too if you want another one. We'll give you Jamestown for mods.
That'd be good. Hey, I appreciate that.
We don't want you to have it too easy.
Oh, believe me, it's
As long
not
as you keep the
easy.
weather away from tracks, though. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Well, and the thing is, like with the tracks out east, like Red River Valley is the only one that's started up when we have to wait another 2 weeks for Jamestown to open up. Ada doesn't open
Yep.
up until school is out, and then Memorial Day is the first night for Cheyenne. So got a little bit for the east, anyways.
So that means it's going to be a very western dominant top 10 mashup.
At this point, likely yes. What is the word of the week for John this week? A bonus points if you can get the previous word of the week in there too.
The previous word, wasn't it like cowabunga?
It was Kawabunga was
Yep.
the last week's word.
Yep.
I think this week we need to have John say caveat.
Caveat.
Ooh. That's a very sophisticated word. I like it.
It's something different for our listeners. We'll see if he can pull it off.
I would say I'm going to have to note these two so I can get him into conversations.
I'm going to just write it in marker on the window in front of John.
Do it! Do it!
It'll be Sharpie though. We'll
So-
have Johnson there just scrubbing away.
Well, remember, I am a very good multitasker when it comes to, announcing. So I am definitely good at hitting flies with the fly swatter and going through and also still keeping track of a race, as well as now scrubbing off permanent marker from my window. That would be another very nice task for me to do during the race night.
Only the best for you, John.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you incorporate the word or words of the week this upcoming Friday at the Dacotah Speedway, Mr. John Breckel. And with that, that will do it for episode 9 of season 3. As always, be sure to like and follow our Facebook page. Just be sure to stay up with our content. YouTube, we also upload the videos, and Spotify, Google, and Apple is where you can listen to us and give us a 5-star review. Thank you to our sponsors, as always, Hitch Harness, The Real Deal with B1, and Issac Hot Sauce Sondrol. Another big weekend of racing coming up, and we hope to see you all out there packing the track.